Hi, my name is Chance. I'm a professional whiteboard animator, and I'm going to be reacting to RSA Animates Drive, the surprising truth about what motivates us. I'll give you an analysis of what's going on, and so you can understand how this whiteboard video is put together. Nice sound effects.
Our motivations are unbelievably interesting. I mean, I find I've been working on this for a few years, and I just find the topic still so amazingly engaging and interesting. So I want to tell you about that. The science is really surprising. The science is a little bit freaky. Okay? We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think. There's a whole set of unbelievably interesting studies. I want to give you two that call into question this idea that if you reward something, you get more of the behavior you want.
All right, so quick intro for this one. This is one of the first whiteboard animations I ever saw, and it is still one of my favorite to this day. So full disclosure, I've got a lot of good things to say about this. This is what you call a traditional or the original kind of whiteboard video. It's actually not technically animation. It's a time-lapse video. This is where an artist and a camera and a whiteboard were all put in the same room, and the artist actually drew all of this artwork on one giant whiteboard. I believe that this lecture was pre-recorded, and the artist had a lot of time to listen to and take notes and sketch out ideas and come up with ideas for what they wanted to do, and then they set up the camera and they filmed themselves drawing everything out in order. Then what happens is that video is put inside the computer into a post-production editing software, and they speed up and slow down the tempo of the drawing so that it lines up and it matches up with the audio. That's the original way that whiteboard videos were created. To this day, it's still one of the most beautiful. I think that it's the most satisfying to watch because it's a real person really drawing in front of you, and your eyes know that and they love that. It is also one of the most expensive ways to make a whiteboard animation. As you can imagine, it's very time consuming, and if you make a mistake, then you basically have to erase back to the point where your last mistake was made and start over from there. So it's very hard to make changes later on. In this case, I believe the artist pretty much had control over what they were doing, and that made it a lot easier because once he committed to something, he didn't have to worry about revisions or reviews, so he could kind of just go forward with it. But when you're working on a production where there's multiple team members who are involved and stakeholders making decisions, this is a very, very meticulous, slow, an expensive way to make changes when you need to make them, but it looks gorgeous. So let's get back to the video.
You punish something, you get less of it. So let's go from London to the mean streets of Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the northeastern part of the United States. And let's talk about a study done at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Here's what they did. They took a whole group of students, and they gave them a set of challenges. Things like memorizing strings of digits, solving word puzzles, other kinds of spatial puzzles, even physical tasks like throwing a ball through.
So one of the things to pay attention to here is you have a couple different elements going on screen. You've got the drawings, the pictures themselves, and then you have the text. One of the biggest signs of a high-quality whiteboard animation is how well the text and the images work together. In this case, you can see he's balancing both the text and the images pretty well. If you look at the screen at any given freeze frame, typically the visual space is nicely broken up. The text it's not like a giant wall of text. What we may see in a minute, there may be a little bit more text later. But right now, he's breaking it up. He's kind of going image, text, and it makes it a lot easier for you to track with what's going on. And it makes it easy to read because you're not having that text on screen for very long. You don't want big chunks of text. And then something else to pay attention to that he's doing really well is he is lining up the timing of the text with the words being spoken. It really messes with your head when the text is drawn onto the screen at a different time from when you hear it. So it's super important to try to get those lined up as best as you can, and then also to have the text be actually identical to the way it's being said. You'll see some variation here or there. Sometimes he'll change it just a little bit, but for the most part, the hand is writing out the text that's being said, and it's doing it at the same time. That's super important. It makes it much easier for a viewer to keep up, and they don't have to sit there and try to decrypt or kind of try to sync up in their head. They can pay attention to what you're saying instead of paying attention to what goes with what. So, so definitely that balance of images and text, and the way he's writing the text out in the same timing as the music or as the audio is really, really good in this video.
Hoop. Okay, they gave him these challenges, and they said to incentivize their performance, they gave him 3 levels of rewards. Okay, so if you did pretty well, you got a small monetary reward. If you did medium well, you got a medium monetary reward. And if you did really well, if you were one of the top performers, you got a large cash prize. Okay? We've seen this movie before. This is essentially a typical motivation scheme within organizations, right? We reward the very top performers, we ignore the low performers, and the other folks kind of in the middle. Okay, you get a little bit.
Okay, I don't know if you saw what he just did right there. That was pretty cool. So this style of whiteboard is what I would call a like a mural style whiteboard, or a dynamic camera video would be another way you could describe it. The camera's not static. It's not sitting still. The camera's flying around and following the hand all over this giant whiteboard. We don't even know how big this whiteboard is. And that's a really cool technique. I guess the alternate way of doing it would be to have the camera more static, and the hand would come up and draw the stuff onto the screen and kind of fill up the screen, and then when the board was full, you'd either have to wipe it clean, or you'd have to pan off to, you know, pan the stuff, sweep the stuff off, and start fresh. Would be kind of more of a static approach. In this case, the camera moves fluidly through the video, and that gives him the ability to do some really neat things, like you just saw him go backwards and draw some new stuff into a section that he'd already drawn. That's a great technique for a lot of different reasons. It saves space and it saves work from the end of the production end, so that's smart. But what it also does, more importantly for the viewer, is it anchors ideas to the ideas we've already built. So you're building a case for what you're trying to say. And what happens when you pan off to a completely blank screen, what can happen is the same thing that happens when you get up and walk to another room to do something and you forget once you get there why you came in and what you were trying to do. That actually has to do with the way our brain works. Our brain stores ideas very much in rooms, is the structure that it uses. And so what we're doing here is we're connecting all of the ideas together in a string of rooms that are all synced up, as opposed to separate compartmentalized rooms. And sometimes it can be hard to reconnect that information. So when we use this technique of moving the camera around, it makes the ideas connect together better. That's a really good thing. And one of the important ways that he uses that camera motion is always leaving a little bit of the previous scene hanging over in the image when he starts a new one. So kind of pay attention to that. Pay attention to when he goes back to an earlier section with the camera, and pay attention to sort of how he very rarely moves completely to a blank area unless it really is a new thought completely and doesn't have anything to do with the last idea.
So what happens? They do the test, they have these incentives, here's what they found out. 1, as long as the task involved only mechanical skill, bonuses worked as they would be expected. The higher the pay, the better their performance. Okay, that makes sense. But here's what happens. But once the task called for even...
Notice how he is also breaking up the text with a little bit of color. That can go a long way. Like when you need to use more text, that color, and also in the images, color draws the eye. It's going to hold the eye longer. That's actually what color does, is it holds the eye longer at a location. So if you want somebody to really pay attention to something, then using that little pop of color in this one. He's not doing a full color one. You can do a whiteboard animation where everything is colored fully, and that has a different kind of effect. In this case, it's a more minimal approach, and what he's doing is he's using those little bursts of color to hold your eye on the most important parts of the screen. It's really important when you're designing an animation to know that that's how that mechanically works with the eye, because you don't want to sit there and do something in a bright color that is not the most important thing.
Conspiracy theories, I wanted to point out the notoriously left-wing socialist group that financed the research, the Federal Reserve Bank. So this is the mainstream of the mainstream coming to a conclusion that's quite surprising. It seems to defy the laws of behavioral physics. So this is strange. It's strange funny. So what do? They say, this is freaky. Let's go test it somewhere else. Maybe that $50 or $60 prize isn't sufficiently motivating for an MIT student, right?
One thing also to pay attention to here, and I guess I'll keep it playing.
So let's go to a place.
Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. Notice all of his illustrations are very they're very solid feeling. So he used the little hatch lines, the little marks underneath of that map there to give it a little dimensionality. He uses, different line thicknesses. There's a nice sense of solidity, but it's not overly complicated. One of the things that I see sometimes is artists get really excited, they get really happy, they love to draw, and they end up making the animation or the video artwork way too complex and sophisticated. Part of the idea, especially, you see that more in digital whiteboard animation. You see it a little bit less in these traditional videos because it would be a lot of work to draw a super complicated thing live the way this guy is. He's basically, the camera's rolling, he has to draw, and he has to get it right on the first try. He can't make a mistake. If he makes a mistake, he has to erase it and do it again. You don't have that problem when you're doing a digital animation. So what happens is he has a nice level of simplicity. He's really kind of split the difference. Looks like we're getting a little bit of quality level problems, but he has he's kind of split the difference. Everything's nice and solid. There's enough detail for it to look good, but not too much. These characters are nicely, they've got a lot of personality. They've got a lot of character, but you're not getting tangled up with lots of little hatching or too much shading. I've seen some where there's a lot of shading and it doesn't really make a lot of sense in one of these videos. You want that motion. You want to feel the energy of the hand drawing it out. The faster that kind of comes to life and really the drawing itself becomes almost animated. It's almost as if your mind kind of gets tricked into thinking the characters are moving. So again, another great example with this girl here. Simple, not she's female and has a ponytail and all these things, but it's simple and it works. You can kind of you want it to be simple enough that you quickly grasp what you're seeing. That's one of the big things. More detail, more complication actually can make it harder to tell what you're looking at.
Engagement, which is what we want in the workforce today as people are doing more complicated, sophisticated things. Self-direction is better.
And it's crazy because the all of the text in this is handwritten live in front of a camera. I'm just going to say that is really hard to do. Like, that's really tricky and difficult to do. So, your digital animation you're going to be able to get away with typing it in. But you can't do that on this, so he's amazing.
But the way you want, you can work on it with whomever you want. All we ask is that you show the results to the company at the end of those 24 hours in this fun kind of meeting, not a star chamber session, but this fun meeting with beer and cake and fun and other things like that. It turns out that one day of pure, undiluted autonomy has led to a whole array of fixes for existing software, a whole array of ideas for new products, that innovation bonus. If you can do something cool, I'll give you $2,500. They're not doing this at all. They're essentially saying, you probably want to do something interesting. Let me just get out of your way. One day of autonomy produces things that had never emerged. Right, let's talk about mastery. Mastery is our urge to get better at stuff. We like to get better at stuff. This is why people play musical instruments on the weekend.
So one thing you notice is that the camera movement is a little bit jerky and it kind of wobbles a little bit. That's a result of the fact that they're using the camera. They're actually moving the camera itself as they film it, and that's just not going to be that smooth. You can improve that smoothness if that's something you care about or you want a little bit more control over the camera movement. If you're doing a traditional whiteboard, you can film the entire surface area at once and then go back in and zoom in. You do it at a super high resolution. You zoom in afterwards and you move the camera around in a virtual way that uses a lot of processing power to do, but you can do it that way, or you can go digital if you want it to be a lot smoother than if you're doing a digital whiteboard. Then you have it's a virtual camera, complete control over how it moves.
They give it away rather than sell it. It's going to be huge. I mean, she truly would have thought I was insane. Okay, it seemed to fly in the face of so many things. But what do you have? You have Linux powering.
Yeah, just notice that he keeps he controls the level of detail on all of these characters. It's consistent. When he does the smaller ones, he leaves more information out. As he does the larger ones, he brings in a little bit more detail. But he's never getting too detailed, so it's distracting.
They have jobs. They're working at jobs for pay, doing sophisticated technological work. And yet, during their limited discretionary time, they do equally, if not more, technically sophisticated work, not for their employer, but for someone else for free.
Okay, just so you know, this kind of highly integrated imagery, so when the imagery fits into each other, like this, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of pre-planning to make it look good and to make it all fit into the space and kind of overlap this way. So this is the sign of somebody who's really good, assuming it doesn't get so busy that you can't see anything. His balance between text and imagery and the speech bubbles are actually helping a lot as well to keep everything organized. So if you're going to put this much stuff in and you're going to integrate it and overlap it like this, it takes a lot of design. If it looks good and it's done well, that's going to be expensive. It's just expensive to do this right. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of pre-planning. And what's crazy is he had to do it all right the first time. That's what makes these videos so amazing, is the level of skill necessary not only to design this, but also to draw it correctly on the first try is amazing. Now, this particular artist got a lot of experience drawing live during big business corporate meetings, and then he translated it back in front of the camera. It's even easier because it's not live. You actually have a little bit of post-production. But yeah, so this kind of a composition, man, expect to pay the big bucks. If you want this kind of video, this is one of the most expensive kinds of video. It can get one level more expensive than this. But this is one of your fanciest, prettiest types of videos you're going to get, for sure. Yeah.
That's a strange economic behavior. Economists who look into it, why are they doing this? It's overwhelmingly clear. Challenge and mastery, along with making a contribution. That's it. What you see more and more is a rise of what you might call the purpose motive. Is that more and more organizations...
So notice he kind of moved into a more blank piece of canvas because he's kind of starting a new idea. That's a good move to kind of separate it and indicate we're going on to something that's related, but it's not, not quite a stream of consciousness.
From the purpose motive, bad things happen. Bad things ethically sometimes, but also bad things just like not good stuff, like crappy products, like lame services, like uninspiring places to work. That when the profit motive is paramount, or
this is a good example of where the artist is bringing some humor in, even though it's not necessarily a joke in the voiceover.
More and more organizations are realizing this and sort of disturbing the categories between what's profit and what's purpose. And I think that actually heralds something interesting. And I think that organizations that are flourishing, whether they're profit, for profit, or somewhere in between, are animated by this purpose motive. Let me give you a couple of examples. Here's the founder of Skype. He says, our goal is to be disruptive, but in the cause of making the world a better place. Pretty good purpose. Here's Steve Jobs. I want to put a ding in the universe. All right? That's the kind of thing that might get you up in the morning and racing to go to work. So I think that, that we are purpose maximizers, not only profit maximizers. I think the science shows that we care about mastery very, very deeply.
Another big thing you're looking for in a really high-quality video is how strong are the analogies? Are the drawings really obvious and kind of boring? Anybody could think up that idea, or are they presenting, as the voiceover's talking, is it creating an image that creates an aha for you, where it like makes you think deeper about the idea than if you just listen to the audio? If you can watch a video where listening to the audio would give you all the same information and you wouldn't really miss out on anything, then what's the point? What's the point of adding the video in the first place if it's just going to be redundant to what you're already listening to? So these ideas, you want to have these visual analogies, these interesting ideas. He builds a balloon right here when he's talking about things getting unmoored. He creates this analogy to this balloon floating away. It's a devil balloon, and it's got bad service and all these kinds of things in it as they're having an argument and they're fighting with the with the people down there. You want to see that kind of creativity. Now again, you're going to pay more for that kind of creativity. Like if you're going for if this is top of the line whiteboard, bottom of the line whiteboard animation is going to be it's going to be some form of digital typically. Just because it's a lot less labor, and it's going to have out-of-the-box clip art that's generic. It's going to be forced onto your audio. It's going to be very literal. It's not going to be super interesting, or it's not going to make you think deeper about the idea or help you understand the idea better. It's literally just a visual placeholder, as opposed to this where these icons and these characters and these drawings are enriching your understanding of what's being talked about. Another thing you're going to see in your less expensive, or if you're looking for more affordable, this very sophisticated camera work and this very integrated imagery, that stuff, you're not going to get that if you're going for more of a budget or more of a low cost whiteboard animation. Now, it's not to say that it's necessary to integrate the imagery. You don't have to have all the pieces fitting together like a puzzle the way this guy does. And sometimes it's better not to do it that way. This is a long and complicated video. Like the ideas being put forward are complicated. It makes sense to have more information because it's dense. It's very content rich and dense. If you're just doing a little marketing promotion, letting somebody know about a special that's being run or something like this, it's not going to require this level of complexity. So you don't have to, go blow, $100,000 to create something like this for a small promotion. It's more than acceptable to have, just kind of visual anchors that help people remember. It creates consistent imagery through your campaign. A lot of times what I would advise to do if it's a video you're making to integrate into a larger communications or marketing campaign is to use those icons that get designed and created for the video to be reference points in other parts of the campaign. Use it in the print collateral, use it on the signage or on the website or different places so that it all kind of has that synergy. And you can do that really easily with Whiteboard, especially digital Whiteboard, because once it's created as a digital file, in theory, you can replicate that image across all of your different channels. So there's advantages to that. That's a good thing. You wouldn't be able to do that with this as easily because these are not a digital vector images. These are actually filmed with a camera, and so the resolution is only as high as the video resolution is, which means it can't be scaled and things like that. But yeah, that middle of the road, what you're kind of looking for, what I wouldn't recommend going for an option, if you're getting a quote unquote custom made whiteboard video that's in the, $50 to $300 range, for a single video, you're probably going to be getting that clip art, and it's going to be animated terribly, and the integration of the visuals is not going to work well with the audio because they're burning those things out. They can't make any money if they take any time to really customize it. So don't be that cheap. Go for something where original artwork is being created. I'd say that's one of your biggest indicators. The only time that I would, so if you're hiring somebody to custom make a whiteboard animation for you, get them to make the artwork for the animation. Just do it. Like if you got to pay a little bit more to do it, it's ugly and it makes you look bad if you're going with cheap clip art. It just looks bad, and it kind of defeats the purpose of putting out a video because it hurts your brand more than it helps it. At least get custom animation. Even if you're going on the low end, make sure that the artwork is custom created for your video, and then make sure that you see examples of what that artwork looks like before you buy the video. The only place where I would, buy something where you're not getting the custom artwork is if, somebody's doing like a retail style video where it's pre-made, it's white label, and you're just basically paying them to put your branding on it and license it to you. In that case, you can watch the video in advance, and you can see if it's a good video and if you like it, and it's decent quality, and the things I pointed out in here are all lining up. It's got the text and the images are balanced, and these kinds of things are happening. Then go for that. That might be the better option for a low budget video. But yeah, I mean, this is gorgeous. I love everything that comes out of this project with the RSA, between Cognitive Media and the RSA. They were all fantastic. This one's one of my favorites. Go back and watch the whole video by yourself, uninterrupted. I'll post it in the link below down here. And actually listen to the ideas, because there's some really cool ideas that he's talking about in here. And the way he integrates the imagery and the ideas, it's a good balance. Some of these get a little busy, and some of these start, especially when they get fancy and they start to bring in some digital whiteboard, they get really fancy. And we'll do a review of one of those. But this one is as classic and as pure a whiteboard as possible. There's no motion animation. It's just hand drawing on screen. And I think it's beautiful. It definitely made me motivated to make whiteboard video, which is why I animate and produce whiteboard video. So yeah, look at really enjoy that artwork. Great artwork, great balance of imagery. Like I said, this guy kills it. He's amazing. So this is the kind of work that I look at when I want to get inspired and I want to create really good whiteboard animation. But anyways, thanks for watching my video here. If this was helpful, then please subscribe to our channel. We make whiteboard animation, and I'll be doing hopefully more reviews of some different kinds of whiteboard animation in the future. So subscribe and hit that bell so that you can be notified when we come out with new videos. We do produce whiteboard animation for all kinds of applications, but especially if you're a blogger or a podcaster, or you're somebody who has a lot of content that you've already made and you want to get that content to do more work for you, translating it into whiteboard animation is a great bang for your buck. It's a great way to put something really cool on your channel without a lot of extra work from you. Because we handle a lot of that process and don't require too much from you, just approval. So yeah, check out godwinvideo.com if you'd like to see a little bit more about the kind of work that we do, and tune in next time when we do another Whiteboard Animator Reacts video. Thanks for joining today.